To start off, I mean, obviously, everyone's talking about AI.
Yep.
You have stakes in data centers in the US, in Australia and England. You also have that renewable energy project, like you mentioned, Long Road, and a few others. I just want to get your thoughts, because obviously these investments started back, I believe, in 2016.
Yep.
What was the vision? Like, did you know that this was going to become such a...
Yeah, of course. No. Yeah, I've had a crystal ball. I mean, no, not really. And, the previous CEO, to me, one of his favorite sayings was, better to be lucky than good. And there is definitely an element of luck in life and investing. But I mean, I could tell you the story. Actually, both of those did come in 2016. There was another investment we did in 2016 as well, which was Retire Australia, and we can talk about that, right? Not everything's a home run. But we have actually been doing, on the energy side anyway, we've been doing renewable energy since 31 years ago. Our first investment was in a business called Trustpower, which became Manawa Energy, which we sold to Contact Energy. So we have a strong history and credentials in energy, and we're always looking for good ways to use that capability. And so in 2016, I think we'd sold a business called Z Energy, which everyone will be familiar with. And we used the proceeds of that to make 3 investments in 2016, which was one of which was extending our renewable energy investment capability from New Zealand, which is where it had been in Trustpower, to the US. And we saw the US had some great potential as a huge renewable energy market, because they had a lot of legacy, so older coal power stations. Obviously, the economy is a miracle, really, but it's incredibly dynamic, and you could see easily that power demand would grow as well. And we always thought that decarbonisation would become a theme. It comes and goes, obviously, in terms of policy environment, but it doesn't change what's happening up in the atmosphere. And also that solar energy in particular would just become cheaper and cheaper. So that was a very long-term bet on long-term fundamental energy dynamics. And of course, AI has come along since then. Data centers was a little bit of a kind of bet, I think, that we could extend. Actually, what we had within Morrison then was a lot of telco capability. So former CEO Marko Borgievski came out of Spark New Zealand Telecom, as it was, and we had a lot of other people around him who had a long-term view on data usage, basically. And we were already seeing that through mobile networks and fiber networks within his old business. And we could see this trend to outsourcing. Computers used to be, and still to some extent, but they used to be, under the stairs in people's offices and in government department buildings. And they were starting to become more efficient to push these into central facilities in the kind of cloud format. And we thought that was data growth was, again, a very reliable long-term trend that probably wasn't going to go away. We were right on that. And that data centers was an interesting way to kind of ride off the tail of that. Now, the kind of cloud transformation that happened, was particularly accelerated by COVID, actually, where everybody moved home and we were working more remotely, and people's systems and resilience and all those things came to the fore. That was the first kind of wave where CDC accelerated 2021. But actually, the 5 years prior to that were actually pretty quiet years for CDC. It took 2 years to sign our first revenue contract post buying that thing. And, we're by month 23, we're like, is this thing going to really go? And of course it did, and the rest is history. And AI has been kind of the next wave of reasons why, data centers are the most efficient way to serve those applications to everyone.
And is that a happy accident, a play around AI, sort of almost owning the picks and shovels where the amount of energy needed is incredible and they need a place to store all this information as well? Yeah,
totally a happy accident. I don't think we realized at the time. The genius of the data center model is you charge by the megawatt, right? So you can spend the same on the building, but it's really the density of the compute. And actually, unsurprisingly, when you build a solar farm, you charge by the megawatt. And that's what makes them quite interesting in a world where the power usage is going through such a massive inflection. But we didn't know that the super dense compute would be as ubiquitous. We could see it happening already in, advanced design, advanced systems, even the evolution to quantum computing. You could see there would be increasing energy intensity, which would drive both the energy and the data center side of the business, but nothing like what's happened now.
So when you're staring into your crystal ball like in 2016 and you're looking, going, well, obviously we're going to need more power. Renewables seem like the smart play. There's obviously, like mentioned, the issues around carbon in the atmosphere and all that. You're talking about, obviously, data's not going anywhere. Are you just looking at that and going, well, that just makes sense, let's do it? Or is there a bunch of analytics and numbers going in behind this? Or is it a bit of a mixture?
Oh, no. I mean, you can tell we had people who grew out of that space, right? So I always joke, we have a big airports team as well. And you know, on the weekends, what do? They read Airports Monthly and they like dream about airports. And on their holidays, they make their wives endure walks around airports. And so there's, you know, I think there's always better when you've got a group of people who just do this for fun, right? That's what they talk to half their friends about all the time. So then there's of course analytics and research that goes into it. But actually, people who are deep in these industries, who kind of dream about it, who've gone through multiple cycles of the ups and downs, which you kind of need to understand what's hype and what's not. That's really what gives you the firm base to then say, actually, the data backs that up. Somebody who's been through multiple cycles in the industry thinks, actually, yeah, this is actually legitimate and not hype. And from that, then the last piece is, so you've got your theme, right? There's a few other themes in the world that we look at as well. It just so happens those two have been quite good for us. And then you say, well, can I invest in it? Is there something available that's kind of the right size that we can get co-control of or control of, that's close enough that we can use our capability to address it? So there's a whole heap of other things that have to go right before you find that investment. And then that investment has to perform. You know, that story about CDC, you didn't just turn on the lights and this thing happens. It takes quite a lot of work and planning to get to where it's got to today. So there is a real process, but actually that kind of gut feel from people who are deep in the industry is a really important part of it.
So it's their expert knowledge and, like you said, people that live and breathe that give you a good gut feel to work from. Yeah.
I mean, if you compare that, so those two have been home runs. I think our IRRs would be like 40-something% on those at really big scale. So lots of money, billions of dollars made. But at the same year, we invested in Retire Australia. This is a good contrast, right? And Retire Australia hasn't been a bad investment or a bad business. But the theory there was aging population will need both suitable accommodation as we get older. Well, this is all happening to all of us. Some of us already, and that will need investment, purpose-built facilities, and also facilities that have healthcare available or close by, so you don't have to move out, and you can kind of age it in place, I guess is the term. And we'd seen that happen in New Zealand. New Zealand had quite an advanced model for that, still does, but it hadn't really penetrated Australia. So the idea was, well, can we bring that model to Australia? And then that hasn't gone as well. We sold that and we got our money back out last year, but we didn't make much money on that. We did that with New Zealand Super Fund. And just funny things happened in the market. There was a Royal Commission into aged care in Australia that put the industry back. And we weren't aged care, but the retirement village industry kind of got held back by that. Then you had quite big construction cost inflation in parts of Australia. In Queensland now, where that business is centred, massive construction cost inflation because the Olympics are coming and all these builders are really busy building out for the Olympics, right? And when you've got construction cost inflation, it's very hard to build new units and sell them on, and it costs, and people don't sell their houses, and all these things kind of slow up the growth of those businesses. So, I think very similar process, right? We had a very good long-term theme that I don't think is going away. And we had a pretty good business to access it, but things can happen on the way that you don't plan and it doesn't work out. The trick, I think, is to not let those last too long and to move on.